Oh, this game. This is one freaking awesome game. I honestly will recommend this game to anybody that can play it. Seriously. All of you Lord of the Rings fans need to freaking experience this game. Oh. You know what? Here's why. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is, I guess you could kind of say, a mix between Assassin's Creed and Lord of the Rings. Heck, who wouldn't love a crossover of that? Seriously, I think it's awesome. Now, the whole premise of the game is you take control of this ranger, Talion, who he and his family are brutally murdered by the Black Hand of Sauron. It's in the feels right there. It really does. It's a tearjerker. Afterwards, this wraith comes in and kind of, I guess, brings Talion back to life, but they're kind of fused in a sense. And this gives Talion pretty much the ability to never die, thus leading him as nicknamed by the orcs, the Gravewalker. And by not dying, your task is now to build your own orc army through the branding. Now, you're not supposed to learn about branding until halfway through the game, but this game has been out a while. I'm pretty sure you guys all know about it, right? Take control of orcs and everything. It's really cool. And you have to build up this big army, and you basically go and try to attack the Black Hand. Really cool game. Story-wise, it's pretty solid. There's a guest appearance of Smeagol, who ties into the identity of the Wraith, which I will not spoil. You need to go play that yourself. And it's an interesting blend of combat. It kind of rips some themes from Batman. So you still have that one button press thing, but it gives this like spin on it. It just feels great. The counters feel really good. The ground takedowns feel really good. If you are experienced in the Batman Arkham games, this should feel right at home with you, at least combat-wise. And you kind of have, I guess, 3 different modes you can go into, if you want to call them modes. Your neutral mode, where you're just hitting people with your swords. Stealth mode, which is easily accessible, at least to the Xbox One, with the right trigger, which allows Talion to enter into a crouch state. Now, I personally found that this was a little overpowered, as the orc AI can't seem to handle Talion's stealthing. Like, you could stand in front of an orc some distance, and if they start to notice if you just crouched, orc would forget about you. Other than that, it's pretty good with the AI. I mean, stealth kills are brutal. I won't get into the kills just yet, but man, Talion likes decapitating heads a lot. Now, the final mode, I guess if you want to call it that, is kind of when you have your bow out. When you have your bow out, you kind of go into the Wraith form with the bow. Ignore that. With the bow, and it kind of allows you to go into the Wraith world, and you're seeing all the orcs and everything. And you get this thing called focus, which kind of slows down time, and when that's gone, it's all in fast, normal motion. And Wraith World, how the developers of this game used it, was a really cool idea. And it's kind of like, almost, if I'm going to reference the Batman games again, it's Detective Scanner, which lets you see through walls, see where people are, which is basically what it does. You basically look like the Wraith for a minute in the Wraith World, like from Lord of the Rings, that awesome racing between Frodo and the Green Wraiths, and Nazgul. No, they do not make an appearance. Sadly, I guess. I forgot to mention that this game actually takes place pre-Lord of the Rings. So Sauron's not an eye yet. Alright. I think it's about time. I'm going to show you some of this gameplay. Oh man, this game is brutal. Take a look. A little bit of backstory of where I'm at in the game right now is I just took down this war chief, and this guy became war chief, so I didn't want him to be war chief, so I killed him. You thought I was kidding when I said he liked decapitating. No. So the game's premise is basically you just taking out hordes and having much of like what Batman can do. In fact, some of the button commands are extremely similar. Like how in Batman, the instant takedown you could do, Same button commands as here. What they did with the twist though is that a later upgrade lets you use it twice. Oh, it's cool. It's cool. This game's great. It looks gorgeous. Now my screen can only show it at 720p, so that's probably the best value you're going to see, at least with my gameplay. But, it may not look that great now, but you definitely need to see this on the console. It looks great. Now what I just did was called the Shadow Strike, which is a later upgrade you get with Talion, where you can teleport to enemies and kill them. And that stealth kill I did was called Brutalize, which, obviously as you can see, very brutal.
When you and this traitor are dead,
now this is an example of the Nemesis system. Very cool. Orcs will remember you, they will remember your actions. This is actually a war chief fight I did. Beat it in 30 seconds, because game clips are only 30 seconds long. You just saw me first clash with them. And the goal of it is basically for you to take down the war chiefs and have your captain be war chief. And I'll explain the Nemesis system. As I was saying about the Nemesis system, if you've heard of Shadow of Mordor, you have probably heard of the Nemesis system. Now this is a element of the game that really sets this apart from other copies of, I guess, a Batman-esque game. Using Spider-Man. What? Alright. Now what it is basically it has your normal grunt orc, which you'll find roaming around the world, and then this special kind of, I guess you can call them mini-bosses, if you want to. They get ridiculously easy later on once you get all the abilities, and if you've pumped 90 hours into the game like I have, you just know how to take them down very quickly, but called captains. And those captains command the smaller orcs. And if you pull up the map of all of the orcs, that is the ones you will see the most everywhere, the captains. And what the Nemesis system does is make every single orc unique with their own unique name, their own title, their own strengths and weaknesses. It's really cool. Like some of them will be like invulnerable to, say, ranged attacks, which means you can't shoot them with the bow or throw throwing knives at them. Or some will be invulnerable to stealth, so you can't sneak attack them. Or the one that I personally hate the most is Combat Master, which means you can't do combat executions on them, and you can't flurry hit them, which is where Talion just sits there, just wails on them with the Wraith. It's awesome. And what's cool is whenever you die in the game, the orc that killed you, if it's a grunt, will be promoted to a captain, and he'll remember you. He'll say some like witty line like, "Oh, Tark, I thought I killed you. Oh, you're coming back. I can't wait to kill you again." I've never heard a line twice. Ever. That is how diverse these are. And I've played 90 hours of this game, and I have not heard a repeat of lines. That is awesome. That is awesome. If I'm going to be talking about lines real quick, the voice acting is really good. Like, all the orcs sound unique. Some of them will talk to you, others will, like, grunt and snarl. Or if you were really creepy, they'll just laugh maniacally at you, which I was on my friend's game we were playing, and we ran into this orc that was kind of almost like a Joker version of, I don't know, you know what I mean. It was ridiculous. He was hard. It was fun. Alright, back to the system. And I don't know, it's just really cool. So above the captain is the war chief, which is what I've talked about, and these guys are the big guys. Like, they're hard to take down if you're not ready. And what happens is war chiefs have these bodyguards, which will be other captains. And what you can do is once you unlock the branding ability, you can have the war chief's bodyguards be under your control, and so that way you have like all this extra help when you're taking on the war chief. But what's interesting about the war chiefs is you don't find them roaming around in the open world. You have to do a specific set of requirements to draw the war chief out. And if you look into the lore books, it'll actually say that the reason why the war chiefs do that, why they come out from their hiding, is because if an opponent's challenging them, like say you freeing all the Caragors, which are like these like beast things, oh, they're nasty. Don't run into them. Then he'll be like, oh, hey, someone's wanting to challenge me. He comes out, and then you can brutally kill them like how I've done, or you can just brand them and have them be yours. And that's kind of how you complete an area, is by killing or branding all of the war chiefs. Yeah, it's really cool. There's two areas that you can play around in. The first area kind of looks like how we've always seen Mordor in the movies. It's really bleak, it's really dark. There's some cool orc campouts. It's awesome. And in the second area, it's like this lush green open field, hills and stuff. It's really cool. It's kind of a part of Mordor that hasn't been taken over yet by Sauron's power, and it's really interesting. And the lore in this game. Oh my word, these guys have done their homework with Lord of the Rings. Like, there is so much lore in this game. If you're a big Lord of the Rings fan, which I'm a fan, but I'm not a super nerd, you'll definitely love these small tidbits of information they have. You can find these like artifacts that if you look around, you can like play a certain memory of like when that artifact was dropped or whatever. Like there was this pickaxe in it that I found, and it had a conversation with a dwarf about how they wanted to uprise against the orcs. It was cool. Just little things like that really make this game kind of just stand out, I guess, from amid the mindless first-person shooters. It's really fun. But also the world just feels alive in a sense. Kind of, I know I keep alluding to Batman, but like how, you remember when Batman, when you're just zipping around this city, and you can just hear all the thugs kind of talking about what's going on? Same thing here, the orcs. They're talking about you, they're talking about Sauron. Oh, it's great. Now the DLC that's out for it right now is they released a free DLC a while back called Lord of the Hunt, which is kind of an epilogue of sorts to Talion's story, where this is after the end of the game, where he's now with this dwarf companion you're with, known as Torben, and you two go out to try to defeat the Beastmaster war chiefs. Now these are war chiefs that can that have basically mastered the beasts of Mordor, and you have to take them out because if they can pass on what they know about beast taming to other orcs, it would make Sauron's army unstoppable. By far, this was the most fun I ever had with this game, was hunting down the beast war chiefs. There's a section where you're riding Caragors, and you have to pick off the captains off Caragors, and you have to like chase down the war chief on your Caragor and knock him off and sword fight him. Ah, it's the coolest. Now, probably the more unique creatures of Mordor, called the Graug. You know the Rancor from Star Wars? That's kind of what a Graug is, except it's bigger, it's got armor, it is insane. And in the Lord of the Hunt, they have this thing called the Wretched Graug, which pretty much just vomits like poison or something. It is ridiculous. I mean, taking control of one of these things is awesome. And what I'm about to show you is when I was running around in the Lord of the Hunt DLC, and I actually came across against something weird that kind of alludes more to this fact of that the world is alive and breathing. Let me show it to you. It's really interesting. What we have here are the kind of creatures around them. They're called Caragrass, which are kind of a stealthier version of a Caragor, and then when you do stealth attack with them, they're taking on this Wretched Graug. Like, it was amazing for me to just watch this happen. I never saw this, and I thought it was really interesting. It's cool. Like, this world's alive, it's breathing, it's great. All in all, this is a fantastically built game. Thankfully wasn't overhyped, such as the titles Watch Dogs, Titanfall, and Assassin's Creed Unity, which were so overhyped, and when they underdelivered, just disappointed audiences. But Shadow of Mordor kind of went under the radar a bit. Like, if you didn't know about it, you didn't know about it, and it wasn't huge like Titanfall was. So when the game came out, I was really, really impressed with what they did with this game. Personally, though, as great as the story was, it totally leaves sequel bait at the end. So badly. So badly. You know what? That's alright. I'm excited for a sequel. In fact, they just released the Bright Lord DLC, where you can actually play as the Wraith when he was alive. That ties a huge element of the story together. And, I don't know. I guess the game has been out a while, so you guys probably already know, but the Wraith is Celebrimbor, the elf, who is alluded to in the Lord of the Rings series, but not that well known. He's in fact the Ringmaker. He made the Rings of Power. He helped Sauron create the One Ring, and you play as him in the Bright Lord DLC when he has the One Ring, and he's building up this massive orc army. to try to combat against Sauron to get his family back. And Killmoonber's a totally different beast. Having, instead of Shadow Strikes, which he can still do, he gets the Shadow Strike brand. And it's just amazing. If I had clips of it, I would show you it, but sadly I do not. So if you want to learn more about the Brightlord DLC, there's other sites or other channels on YouTube that will probably have shown this off. It's definitely worth checking out, as the Brightlord DLC kind of feels like its own game. It's just really well done. Alright, I think that about wraps it up for this review. In my opinion, I give Shadow of Mordor about an 8 out of 10, probably a 9 out of 10 if we're going to go by numerical standing. It's just, I mean, there were some shortcomings in the game. There were. I'm going to admit it. I mean, it felt like once you got good at the game and once you had all the abilities unlocked, the game kind of was just really easy. But the combat is fast, it's refreshing. I never get old with the combat or the combat executions, even though I've seen them hundreds of times. The game's just fun to explore and to mess around in, and limitless replayability with the captains, war chiefs, and your interactions between them. It's just really fun overall. I definitely recommend anyone out there to play this game. It is a blast to play. And on that being said, I'll see you guys in the next review. See ya.